Mic check, is this thing on?
Yes, it is. Hi, John.
Hey there. My audio device isn't quite right. I'm going to drop off and be right back.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is the Past Computation Element working group session. So let's start by the usual note. Well, it's Wednesday already, so you should all be familiar with the content. The IETF has IPR policies that you should abide with. In case you're unfamiliar with the reference mentioned here, please have a look. Keep in mind that anything you share, discuss, or heard during the working group session are part of the IETF contribution or are subject to the policies. Done not really well. We are social human beings. Everyone is expected to be treated equally with all deserved respect. So in case you witness or feel there is a situation that could be associated to harassment, please contact anyone in charge, starting from the chairs up to the Hamburg team. There are people ready to hear any situation you may feel that is not normal. We are still a mixed participation. There are people in the room here, which is quite large today. So hopefully you will have time to get to the mic before the timeout expires. There are people connected remotely, including already. Hi, John. So make sure that you raise your hand using the Mythical app before joining the queue, and we'll give the floor to each people with usual rules to make sure that everyone can participate. So handling a mixed queue with people in the room and people remote. For people remote, if you have a decent microphone, that will be easier. Here, I think there is a kind of echo, at least from the chair desk. So make sure that the chain is fine for the sound all along. Thank you. So there are minutes in progress. Andrew is already starting with the note, but if you want to give him a hand, please feel free to join the notes, especially in case you have come on to share and your name or point may be not that well transcribed to the minutes. Make sure that you fix that. So we already talked about the queue. There's the chat as well, in case you want to share some secondary comment. That could be also a way to talk about secondary issues. Usual reminders, in the IETF, we mostly use mailing list to progress the work. So please keep in mind that we are helping Haster to see work progressing using the mailing list. We are there to judge consensus based on the mailing list exchanges. So try to be as vocal as possible, especially at the key steps like adoption polls or last calls. Even if you are a co-author of document, that's also useful to see how much you are eager to promote the work you are involved in. We also have a wiki, we also have a GitHub page, and we have a usual process for Olicot points allocation. By the way, John, you have some pending ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wants to bash the agenda? Okay, let's move on. Let's start with the working group status. We have 2 new RFCs in the previous IETF, which is a nice progress, I feel. We have 2 ones in the RFC editor queue that are blocked because of the dependencies with other documents. One of them is in our hands, so we should progress in a decent time frame. The other one is related to the TLS update, and I guess that this one will be progressing in a reasonable time frame as well. So we're confident that those one will be solved in a near future. There are 5 other IDs that are with the AHGs. The workload is split between various IDs because there are large list of documents there. So we won't go into the details. We have multiple documents that have early IANA allocated code points. Some of them expired already, and we try to renew all the ones that make sense, especially the ones that are progressing significantly within the working group. We know that we have large queues of documents in progress, so sometimes the annual expiration date isn't enough to cover our pace of work. So Dror and I try to make sure that the early allocation are maintained within the IANA, and we try to catch up with those. We don't have any new errata, but we have several liaisons. One came, I think, yesterday, and Dror is fast enough to update the slides immediately, so it's already tracked there. And there is another one from the DHC. Both of them are collectively targeted to multiple groups within the routing area, so we will try to gather a collective response, and we have people in charge of carrying the liaisons with the other SDOs. So for the ITUT and the ETSI, will contribute to building the collective response. Then let's go into the detail of the document within the working group hands.
Yeah, so let me try and quickly go over the documents, the working group documents. Let's start with the documents which has cleared the working group last call. This is the PCEP color. We have a new update, but as I hear from the authors that one more update is needed before we can send it off to the ISG. So I'm looking forward to getting that update quickly so that we can get this done as well. This is a very small extension. This is our queue for the documents that we added in the working group last call. The status that I wanted to highlight was we last ITF. Let me go start with the state sync. Where we discussed it, we agreed on the text, but there was an update, but there are still few things pending. The proposed text about the new notification is still not there in the document that is published. So make sure authors to handle that. And there are a few pending comments from Adrian as well that we want to close out on and progress this document to last call. Then going to on the left, flex grid. In the flex grid document, there are still some pending comments, and we were promised that an update would be made. We are looking forward to getting that update. So just a reminder to authors that a lot of effort has gone in these documents, but maybe towards the end, things fizzle out. So just a reminder that it's your effort. You have pushed, and the working group has done a lot of work on this. Please continue to progress these documents towards the end as well. Don't lose your interest, or if it is losing interest, notify us so that we can remove them from our list as well. As you see, our list is quite long. Then other documents are, I think, making good progress, so I will not go in details. One thing I want to highlight is we would be moving SID algo as our next item in working group last call. So if there are any comments, any discussions to have, let's have it now. We have these other documents which are nearing working group last call. Some of them are on the agenda. Uh, SR path segment, though, seems ready from our side, but has a normative dependency on a Spring document. So we'll make sure to time that accordingly, so that we prioritize other work before we push that, because anyway, it will be waiting in the RFC editor queue anyways. Uh, and with entropy label position, I think we looked at it. It seems ready, but it has an implementation section missing. And as a reminder, we have a policy at the PC working group about implementation section. You can ask the chairs and request to remove that, but our policy is that it needs to be handled. And we have had in the past to clearly state that yes, at this moment of time there is no implementation, and that's perfectly fine use of the section as well. With PCEP-LS, there was an update. We got a comment from Adrian, and an update was made. A new section on evaluation of the experiment was added, which was quite useful. From the author side, this seems not much update, but we need to. As you can see, we have a bit of a queue, so we have to wait for this document's term anyway. With IFIT, again, it's in the same boat. Implementation section is missing, but otherwise kind of seem ready from the PCEP point of view. Various other working group IDs, some of which we wanted to highlight the status. With interdomain, we had a major update made by the authors, but we haven't got much reviews on it. So please review. This is an important document as well. With multipath, there is an open question that was asked last time, whether this document should go beyond what is defined in the Spring SR policy RFC. And if the authors want to add it, I think it's better to just handle that comment on the list. And if there is a reason that yes, it should go beyond, let's have that discussion and close a loop on it, instead of keeping that question open for much longer. For P2MP policy, we had good discussions. There are comments from the past. We had the shepherd assigned as well. We just need to see the update on this document as well. Others, in time, I will just focus on the SRV6 one. I think this is one of the documents which might be ready for working group last call. So we want to give a chance for folks to comment, and if there are no issues, we can move this also to the working group last call queue. With BRTE, there was an update, and we would like more review. Yes, please go ahead, Yilin, if you have a comment.
Sorry, I'm just a little bit late for the hand up. I'm just have a have a comments to the liaison on the HC from FFG.
Yes.
Sorry, a little bit coming back, and actually, the liaison is more about asking for the protocols for the control of the FGOTN. And currently, in CCAMP and PCE, we already have some job which are used to analyze the using GMPS and PCEP for the control of the FGOTN. So I think this contribution could be one of the response for this liaison. Okay, so that's my information. Thank you.
Thanks. I think this would be a good to also state that explicitly on the mailing list as well, so that it's on the record clearly. And once we form the response, we don't forget to include your inputs.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Any other authors, if they want to have a comment, if we missaid something, you want to add more information, this is for not just for the chair's point of view, but for the whole working group. Any input on any of the working group drafts, feel free to provide. Okay, so I think the last item that I have is the control ID space. This was discussed during the last meeting. The authors made an update as well. That's pretty good. There was one question with respect to whether the TLVs, a separate TLV is needed for sRGB and sRLB. The authors think it's not needed. If there is any discussion further on it, please have it so that we can conclude on it. As far as I remember, it's put as an appendix open question. So if there is no other, if this gets resolved, then I think we can close that open issue as well. Finally, this is our adoption queue. We have one document which is already in adoption. And Julian, would you like to?
Yeah, draft being co-author. The first one is still an open poll, so we are aware that since it was started next to the IETF meeting deadlines to post document, people were working on their document and less on mailing list. But please try to be vocal on this poll, and I'd like to be able to close it in a reasonable time frame as well. So have a look at the list and especially read the document and give a feedback as soon as you feel like it. Thank you. Want to resume?
Yeah. Like many folks ask us chairs also to prioritize your document. So if you guys don't comment on others' working group document, the time that we need to keep the poll open also increases. So it impacts your work as well. So when you come to us and say, do our documents working group adoption, if you're not responding on other folks' document, it's going to take much longer for you as well. So just remember that as well. One thing we wanted to highlight was a document that we discussed a lot previously, which is the PCE operational. The last conclusion that we had was that we wanted to break it into two documents. But since then, we have not heard back from authors. The authors have not made any update. We have been trying, like during this reminders, to highlight that. And I think it's an important work. A lot of good information exists in this document, especially the part which is a clarification part. And chairs would like to even fast track that document if the authors can make the first update. And if so, I really urge the authors and anybody who's interested in that topic to work on it, and let's progress it, because lots of good discussion and time has gone on that as well. And we also would be targeting the BFD document that we discussed some time ago as the next document in our adoption queue. So just to, for transparency and clarity, this is how our queue currently looks. Any comments on any of this? And on Meetecho, I'm seeing around less number of folks, and more folks are in this room. So I think you guys have not logged in into the Meetecho. Please do that. Thank you. Andrew?
Andrew Stone, Nokia. Yeah, I just want to mention the operational document. There's a lot of good content in there. So I definitely don't think we want that to drop. So I'll probably reach out to the authors and see what steps we can take to kind of split that up. Thanks.
Thanks for helping out, Andrew. Okay.
Then we move to the first presentation. So Andrew, no, sorry. Samuel, yeah. Wasn't looking at
Hi all, I'm Samuel. Can I start? Is it fine?
You have the slide control.
Okay, thank you. Hi all, I'm Samuel Sidor from Cisco. I'll be presenting draft about PCE extensions for circuit style policies on behalf of authors. So the draft is extending PCEP to meet requirements of connection-oriented transport services using segment routing policies, also called circuit-style SR policies. There is another draft in Spring Working Group that describes overall concept of CS policies, which was presented earlier today in Spring Working Group, so I will not go into details. This draft is just extending PCEP to be able to encode information about desired end-to-end path persistency, and allowing the PCC to specify in PCEP report when PCE should recompute path or potentially block the recomputation completely. The second part of the draft is introducing a way to specify whether a strict path is required or if loose path is acceptable as well. Although the motivation for this extension is related to segment routing and circle style policies, the extensions are applicable to other setup types and use cases as well. So the draft is introducing new TLV and LSP objects to restrict path computation behavior on PC to achieve the path persistency. This TLV includes two flags to adjust the behavior. If P flag is cleared, the PC may recompute the path if the current path is not valid. So, for example, if the topology has changed, resulting in existing path not satisfying the constraints of LSP anymore, but the PC still must not recompute the path if the path is just suboptimal. The second part of the draft is clarifying existing O flag in RP object for SR in stateless messages, as it was originally defined only for RSVPT, and it is introducing similar flag for stateful messages in LSP extended flag TLV of the LSP object. Essentially, we state that strict path in segment routing means that the path should consist of the seeds of specific adjacencies. So it is allowed to use adjacency seeds and in specific cases also binding seeds, but it is not allowed to use the node seeds at all. We have also introduced two new capabilities in stateful PCE capability TLV to advertise support for both extensions individually, allowing for their reuse in the future for other use cases beyond the circuit style. So now let's summarize the changes since the last presentation of this draft, which was done at IETF 119. So we made minor changes related to path recomputation TLV, specifying that the TLV must be processed if supported, whereas it was not enforced previously. For the F flag, we aligned the behavior described in two sections of the draft that had minor discrepancies, and we clarified details about the usage of binding seed in the path when recomputation is blocked. Additionally, we performed some refinements and cleanup in multiple sections of the document to improve the readability and clarity. We also addressed some comments from Andrew and Christian. So thank you guys for those. Those were really valuable comments. So, as Drew and Julian already described, we are waiting for the last call. So basically, the draft should be ready already. So feel free to comment if you have any feedback. Any feedback is really appreciated. So, and thank you for listening. If anybody is aware about any implementations which are not tracked in the draft already, please let me know and I can add them. Any questions? Any feedback?
Any questions for Samuel? With respect to a working group last call, I think what's the status in the spring as of now? I think it was presented today on the session. So I think Ketan, can you confirm if you are on the author?
So if I remember correctly, Zafar was actually presenting that one, but yeah, I'll keep Ketan to comment as well.
Yeah, I'm not an author on that, but the authors have asked for working group last call. There are some minor comments still to be addressed, so it should come soon.
I think we can time it accordingly, like working group last call of spring, let it pass, and then immediately we can handle it in ours. That would be the right way to do it.
We actually discussed that part in mailing list, if I remember correctly, and basically it's more in, let's say, opposite case where the spring draft has kind of dependency on this one more than the opposite order, because finally the spring draft relies on some extensions which are required from PCEP draft, and basically the PCEP draft is introducing some generic extensions which are potentially applicable to basically any other use case as well. But I mean, it should still happen soon, even for the Spring Dart. So
Samuel, this was not very clear, so maybe just write it down. It would also, I am looking at Andrew, and it will help him also to to note what you just said. So just put that in chat as well.
okay, yeah, I can put it into the chat or we can discuss in mailing list.
Yeah, but I do understand even in that document, I'm seeing that it is referencing both IDR and PCEP a lot. So maybe it's sort of automatically becoming a cluster that all three documents might need to be progressed together. That's what I'm inferring. But yeah.
Yeah, this is Zafar from Cisco. Yes, just to confirm what Ketan mentioned is that the authors have requested last call for the Spring document, but I tend to agree with Samuel that they are not totally related. This is like a protocol extension. So I don't know if there's a need to do a sequence, but it's up to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your input.
Don't go too far, Zafar. I think you're next.
Okay, so my name is Zafar Ali from Cisco, and I'm presenting this draft about PCEP extension for seed list optimization on behalf of the co-authors. So let's go over the problem statement. So the problem is that the SR policy, when a seed list of an SR policy ends with the node SID of the endpoint, and there are certain traffic, let's say services traffic is carried over it. The service traffic has a locator which takes it to the endpoint. So the endpoint node SID start to become redundant in those cases. And carrying back-to-back same SID is not efficient for compression reasons. So what this draft says is that we can eliminate, but the other side of thing is that it's not always that the service that is carried has the locator information. So say for instance, if MPLS traffic is carried, or there are other use cases as well. So this is where it becomes sort of an API attribute in depending on the traffic that is steered over the policy, whether a PCC is able to or needed to include the endpoint node SID, or it can exclude. Okay, so one thing is that when there's a equivalent draft in IDR about the BGP TE API extension, where there was a question about the PCE. So this is just to reconfirm that after that this slide was done, and there is a statement that PCE always compute the policy to take it to the endpoint node from a path calculation perspective. This is the data plane aspects. And the other point, which is important to note, that this is a steering property. It depends on what type of traffic is carried over the policy. So it is a policy attribute in that sense. And because in PCEP, because the unit of signaling is a candidate path, so that's why it becomes a candidate path attribute. So it's a policy attribute, but it's needed to be the same application to all candidate path carried, because this really depends on what traffic is being carried over. More importantly, it applies to the all segment list. But there is a clarification also that if the segment list end with a UA SID, then there is no UN to begin with, and it doesn't have to be, there's nothing to exclude. So it doesn't apply to SLs that end with a UA. Any device can find out what is the segment list type based on the message in the ERO. So it's an attribute of the SID itself. So it's not something that we needed to extend anything, but only a note to it's this inclusion exclusion applied when the node SID ends with when the last SID of the cell ends with the UN. So from a protocol point of view, for backward compatibility reason, this is needed to be carried in capability. So a peer must agree on whether they are capable of processing and sending the flag. So there's an I flag, which is defined in the RSVP PCE capability sub TLV, which was originally defined in 9603, RSC 9603. And the other part of it is what we call the API part of it is the setting this flag, I flag, based on what type of traffic is carried over. And that is carried in LSP extended flag TLV, and the base TLV is defined in RSC 9357. So it's a very simple extension of a flag on respective TLVs. From an operation point of view, again, simple is that like any other capability, a PSAP speaker indicates its capability for support for I flag in the LSP extended flag TLV during PSAP initialization phase. And that is in the open message. And once that handshake is done, then the per policy or per candidate path flag setting is carried in LSP extended flag TLV between the PSAP pairs. So there was a similar draft, but the encoding had differences. So there was a discussion among the author of the two drafts, and the other draft is draft Flynn PCE SRv6 segment list optimization. And some of the authors are here. We had a discussion during this week, and we agreed to merge the documents. And we're looking for working group feedback, and we're going to publish a merged document as soon as possible, but there is already an agreement made. With that, any question or comments?
Andrew?
Andrew Stone, Nokia. We already talked before, and I know we mentioned in BGP. I just figured also mention in the context of PSEP. Probably worth having a section describing MSD implications for validation, and you still send down the Euro. PCE technically could, consider one extra SID is available, but if it's used in other cases where you're not popping it off, well, then that point you might actually overflow MSD. So it might be worth just having some text just describing this expected behavior. Thanks.
Absolutely. That's a good comment. Many thanks, Andrew. We will add the appropriate text.
Zafar, I also have a couple of comments. One thing which I was not sure about from the encoding point of view, if this is a property of an SRv6T policy, what is the benefit of putting it inside the LSP extended flag? Why is not put it at the SR policy level?
But this is to make sure that this is per LSP, because again, the unit of signaling being the LSP for the messaging.
But you go ahead and say that it needs to be the same for all of them anyways. That's what I remember in the document reading. So this is a small thing. I think at the start itself, if we can discuss where to put this, I think it would be good. My gut feeling was, look at the name, look at everything. It feels like a property of the whole SRv6T policy itself rather than this thing. And another thing was that it's not really, even if we think from the other side, that is it generic enough to put inside an LXP? It's very SRv6. You yourself are clarifying the use of this is very much limited to path setup type as SRv6. So in my gut feeling was keeping it within SR policy container or some other thing might have worked out better. But I want to hear opinion from others in the room as well. What is the right place to encode something like this?
Yeah, so I think from that point of view, two things, right? One thing is this is an SRv6 specific, and that's why when the opportunity was there, it was put in SRv6 specific object for the capability side of things, right?
No, I was especially talking about the I flag below. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just one tiny thing, Cheng, before as well. And also think about whether this capability is actually needed or not. Like the good thing about capability was when if I don't include it, I would have an issue with a legacy system. And that's where basically we need to include a flag so that we have a very clear way to identify. But if the behavior by default is that if flag is not set or flag is ignored is equal to I'm not gonna give you the flag, do we really need the flag as well? So just an idea. I've not thought through it, but it came to my mind, so I was like, let's just
So
discuss that as well.
Yeah, so I think capability was certainly added, so there is no ambiguity in terms of the messaging and backward compatibility reason. But in terms of the need for the flag, like depending on the traffic scale, you need that indicator. So
It feels just weird to say that I will set a flag so that I have a flag.
No, but I think we can discuss more offline on this,
I think,
and also
this
on
is
the
a good
encoding side of things.
Yeah.
Okay? So
These discussions, I agree, makes more sense there.
Thank you.
Who's next on the queue? Cheng.
Yeah, Charlie from Huawei. So I do agree with that. We need some flag in the SR policy level and the candidate pass level, but I do believe that we need a flag for the seed list level, because we cannot make sure that all the seed lists they have the same like capability to reach to the end point. That cannot be made sure, right? So we still have some pending discussion with Zafar offline, but we can bring it up to the mailing list, and then we can have some discussion there. Yep. Thank you.
Sounds good. But I think just to say that for the record is that because, like I mentioned to you earlier in offline discussion, because it is depending on the type of traffic that is steered, all the SL of a policy needs to get the same treatment. And there is a condition that, I mean, if an SL has a UA ending, then the flag doesn't apply to that, because there's nothing to say about inclusion exclusion. It's a node last endpoint node state specific. But with that in mind, let's discuss if you think there is ever a case where you have to selectively do per SL. That's a discussion that we should have.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Have some discussion. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Samuel?
I just wanted to comment the part, Drew, which you asked about. So basically, whether it should be policy attribute, so some dedicated object which will be, let's say, on policy level. So even now we have something like, let's say, policy name, which is also signaled for every candidate part separately, right? So I agree that ideally it should be signaled once for a complete policy, but at least with current way of signaling all the candidate parts in PCEP, I guess that it is not that simple, because we would need to duplicate that policy object anyway for every candidate part. At least if we don't want to, let's say, change completely the way how policy is encoded in PCEP.
Yeah, so I agree with Samuel that because the unit of signaling is candidate path or LSP, this is where this is falling down to, but happy to have that conversation, Drew. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think next presenter is Andrew.
Try if you are able to. Mine is to the control. Yep, I'm not able to. Yeah, I'm logged out.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay, I'm getting done.
You're right.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, so Andrew Stone presenting this on behalf of my co-authors. So a little reminder for the working group, even though I'm sure most people in this room don't need that reminder. We have an open message. RFC 5440 describes it. It's of course between a PCC and a PCE, or potentially between a PCE and a PCE. Specifically, it carries one open object with extendable TLVs. And really this is to inform different extensions for capabilities and different implementation support, such as like the previous presentation. And a lot of these settings are really about device or entity or system-wide configurations or knobs or settings, such as the device supports this type of technology, supports this capability, or a given property that is essentially node-wide. Now, so far, a lot of this, the implementations that we see out there, some of that information is static, some of it is driven based off of source code, some of it is obviously platform dependent, but at the same time, a bunch of that information can be user-defined or configurable. So on the diagram in front, you can see it's just a simple example, two PCEP speakers, and there's an open object message exchanged. Oftentimes a lot of essentially Boolean flags or just simple attributes that are exchanged for different reasons. Now, the backstory about this is that in IETF 120, there was actually a discussion that took place related to another draft for the controlled ID space about any information that's exchanged in the open message. Should it be in the open message? And two, if it's in the open message, can you change it? And so, like I mentioned, device-specific information traditionally has become in the open message. So there was a discussion about this, about moving it elsewhere, defining a new message, right? All these different things that we discussed in 120. And the conclusion of that was actually to keep using the open message. However, this essentially still leaves the outstanding question of, well, what do you do to update it? And traditionally in PCEP, if you wanted to update any message content, you have to bounce the session, which of course is quite costly and expensive. And so at the time with 120, we basically decided keep using open message, keep requiring a session bounce. However, let's look at evaluating some other mechanism to allow a generic form of modifying open message content. Now, slightly related to this, independently of this, there was also the state sync draft where there was a discussion that happened about how do you convey or proxy or relay information from a downstream PCC to another PCE that you're currently connected to. And at the time in those discussions, what was essentially resolved out of that was to use the notify message to kind of proxy and carry that information across. So this proposal is essentially just carrying on from those discussions to say, okay, let's provide a mechanism to actually update the open message content. And so the proposal is very similar to what we would do with the notify message for state sync, which is we're just going to send a notification message, a new notification object, and carry all of the TLVs that you would originally have had in your open message and pass those up to PCE. So it's pretty relatively straightforward. Essentially, the idea is to allow a speaker to just refresh the remote end. Here's all my latest values. And so you can see on the screen, just a simple diagram of, essentially what that object format is going to look like. But essentially, the intention is to carry all of the TLVs that you originally would have sent in the original open message. Now, when it comes to scope, obviously this can get very messy and very complicated very quickly because we have a lot of different extensions in the open message. So because of this, the intentional document currently says you send all or nothing. Don't send incremental adding or removing your TLVs, and you're also not describing how to change specific values. So for example, if a TLV in the open message contains a list, we don't describe how to add and remove that list. You carry that TLV and it's up to that implementation to understand it. So you're essentially sending an entire open object message all over again. Now, obviously on the remote end, the speaker receives essentially a full snapshot of an open message, and it's up to that speaker to actually run a differential to actually figure out what changed compared to the open message originally sent. Now, because of this, we obviously can't actually describe what to do when you receive a differential value. For example, if PCE initiated support is removed off of the capability of a node, what do you do at that point? Well, obviously this is going to be implementation specific based off of the cascading side effects of that. Now, there is risk, of course, that if an open message is handled, such as you're disabling some type of capability or turning something off, there could be data plane impact from this. And so the draft kind of just covers and talks about what are the implications of dynamically updating and turning things off. But it's worth noting that you could still go and shut PCEP, make the change, bounce the session, and you would end up in the same result anyways. So as a fallback, just in case, obviously, because it doesn't explicitly spell out today how to actually handle each individual TLV as part of the refresh. Essentially, if a speaker can't process the differential that it's seeing, or if something goes wrong, doesn't understand it, bounce the session anyways. So it's essentially a fallback mechanism. So that way you don't get into a state where one speaker thinks it refreshed the other side and the other side actually hasn't processed it.
Are you ready to take question right now,
sorry,
or do you
yes.
want to defer them?
No, we could do questions now if you
Okay.
want.
We have
Actually, we're on the last slide anyways. So yeah, so this is just kind of a first starting point, throw out some ideas out there, kind of looking for some feedback about the initial direction. So thanks.
Ketan Talaulikar, Cisco. So I think perhaps we could learn or borrow something which was tried in BGP but never really materialized, which was like the similar open, but there is a dynamic capability. It was tried as a different message. I mean, BGP is different, so but maybe possible in PCEP. So if you could consider having a new separate message, perhaps, which is, you could call it open refresh or whichever, all the objects which are there could be encoded similarly in open refresh, but you could mark that, maybe it's just a marking that XYZ messages or capabilities cannot be modified or cannot be included in an open refresh, but it's essentially the same thing, and list which capabilities or which attributes could be included in both open and open refresh.
Okay, so the idea would be to signal which ones are actually, you can actually modify on behalf of a speaker.
Yes,
Okay.
but do it in a perhaps in a separate message, and whether or not that message can be sent is in the original open capability itself.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, no,
I mean,
we'll definitely chat more. Yeah,
we can discuss,
and especially if there's already a reference for BGP that's doing this. Yeah, by all means, let's take what they have there. No, thanks.
Hi, I'm Adrian Farrell. Can you pop back a slide?
Sure. This one?
Yeah, because so many questions. So essentially, I understand what you want to do and why you want to do it, and I sort of half support the idea of doing it. But then things start to get
Messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In particular, the how to handle state change is not specified. Now, obviously, you don't want to, but what you've done is you're opening up a mechanism that then needs to be backfilled, right, for everything that's out there. If you don't do it, then who?
Very good question. And I guess maybe the question is, should we, or should we kind of see how this actually evolves over time?
Well, yeah, I mean, the evolve over time may be splat in the field. And that's
Very possible. Yeah.
Not what we'd want.
So do you see the need to go and analyze each individual existing?
That's what's worrying me, because what does it mean when somebody changes one of these things? Both ends have got to agree the same meaning of making the change.
Yeah.
And yet, it's pretty unfortunate because there's so much stuff out there. So I sort of like the idea that if we add a flag already in the open that says, I'm willing to tolerate these things changing, or in fact, maybe it's an open refresh supported TLV, which then says, here's a bitmap of all the things I support open refresh on. So an implementation can just say, oh, I only support it on that because I know what it means.
Don't even send me anything, so that way you're not accidentally flapping a session.
And that might actually cover a lot of the issues that I've got, like there's a queue of requests that have come in and they legitimately come in because you said you supported that function, and now you've said you've withdrawn that function, but what are you going to do with your queue and so on?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think along the lines of what Ketan was saying, there's a lot of similarities there. So it definitely seems like explicitly describing I can or cannot update these open content is probably a good starting point, and then probably go from there. Thanks.
And we have John in the queue.
Yeah. So I want to follow up actually to both of the previous people. So with respect to what Ketan said, as far as I'm aware, nobody has ever actually implemented dynamic capability for BGP, or at least it hasn't gotten much traction. And as far as my impression goes, that's basically because of what Adrian said. It's like got way too many pointy bits, and people tend to get close to it and then back slowly away. So it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it, but it does mean, tread carefully. And then the second part is that this is pointing you towards another approach that has been proposed in the BGP side and has not been as successful as one might hope, which is if changing the priors for the all the different state bits mid-flight turns out to be too painful. The other thing that you can look at doing is making resetting a session less painful. So that you say, yeah, I need to reset the session, fine, but it's a relatively low-cost event, so great.
Yep.
I don't actually have a solution for how you do that, though.
Yeah, brain's kind of running fast right now. Regarding the first point, do you think from your experience that's just because it's too broad and open in terms of exchanging what capabilities you do or do not support modification? Like I guess I'm wondering if maybe what I'm hearing from the group is it, or from the feedback, is it almost sounds like maybe we should open up the capability on how to describe this, but don't backfill it for any of the existing ones, and provide a mechanism for all new drafts and all new kind of extensions. Or if anybody wants to introduce an explicit way to do it for anything past, then it's explicitly described exactly how to do that.
So if you'd like me to respond to that, I think it's two things. One is what you said, that going back and covering the existing space is really, really painful because it requires people to go back and scrub their existing implementations and figure out what's going on inside, which is not always easy. The second part is, yeah, I think that there's at least potentially, a good way forward if you say, yeah, we're just going to do this on a going forward basis, and maybe for these three things that are pre-existing and that we think are really, really important, and we're going to put the effort. Just saying, implementers, figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. Thanks.
Stefan?
Stefan Nikowski, isn't it something that we can handle with something like a GR approach, where you flap the session, but both sides are keeping the states, and when the session will be reopened, it opens with the new capabilities, they clean up their state, they do mark and sweep, and they're done?
Yeah, so a lot of implementations today that I'm aware of anyways, they do keep the state, but the issue is you still have to perform that state sync.
Right.
So maybe we need a way to kind of essentially flag, hey, it's only been a short period of time, nothing's changed. Maybe a version.
It's a
or
kind of
something.
mark and sweep that you need
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
But it's probably cleaner. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if you even do that.
Because the main point is flapping the session really hurting? Because it's just the amount of time you spent sending the message over the wire. But I think the biggest work is in creating all the states on the router. So if you can just keep them and clean them up.
And there could still be things ongoing with existing, for example, delegated paths. And so flapping it could kind of intervene or interrupt certain things, and alarms might go off, and it might create noise. But I think maybe off the two things with you and Adrian said, a soft reset might even be something appropriate like this.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
I think that's a very good suggestion, and I take back the comment that I had because I think it's worth exploring what Stefan's saying. We also have worked on states sync optimization routes as well, so something that we can actually build on those approaches as well in this case. Yeah, so worth thinking about. Thanks for all the input. This was very useful.
Great, thanks.
And then we're back to Samuel again.
Hello, Samuel Sidero from Cisco again. I'll be presenting 0.0 version of the draft about LSP reporting extensions in PCEP on behalf of authors. At least I don't see the slide control now. I'm not sure if the problem is on my side.
You should have it now.
Okay, thank you. So our draft aims to improve the accuracy of LSP reporting, leading to more efficient path computation on PCE and reduction in number of unnecessary piece of messages exchanged or better debugging experience. We aim to use this draft as an umbrella to cover multiple smaller gaps in reporting to avoid writing multiple drafts where each of them will include or introduce some single flag, and we will have to maintain multiple small drafts with small extensions. So we currently cover three main extensions: ability to report two types of binding label values per LSP, so requested and allocated value, to allow fallback to dynamic binding seed allocation if explicitly specified value is not available. The second one in draft is introducing the new LSP attributes to indicate if LSP is eligible to be used as a transit LSP, and what is the source of the path specified in the YARO. So whether it is computed dynamically or specified explicitly by the operator. I will go into details in follow-up slides. As specified in this slide, the binding labels were introduced in PCEP in RFC 9604. BCD allocation can be done by PCC or PC, but the RFC is also allowing different PCEP peer to specify the requested binding label values. So for instance, a PC may specify the explicit binding seed value, but the PCC allocates it without PC maintaining the complete label range. So no subdelegation of complete label range happens or anything like that. And if such allocation on PCC fails, then the PCC must reject entire PCEP request. That's per the RFC. The SR policy architecture RFC describes an alternative where the PCC can fall back to dynamic binding seed allocation if the explicitly specified binding seed value is not available. And this requires encoding of two binding seed POVs in PC report message. One for the originally requested BSeed value, and other one for the BSeed that was actually allocated and used by the LSP. And now there are introducing this capability to be able to encode two TLVs along with the A flag, which is supposed to be set for the TLV instance carrying the allocated binding seed variable. There is also new capability to indicate support for this behavior. The next extension allows marking an LSP as a transit eligible. That means the binding label of such LSP can be used in the YARO of another LSP. So, for example, enabling policy stitching in case of computed path exceeding the MSD of the headend. As our policy architecture, RFC also describes the various types of candidate paths, and section 5.1 and 5.2 specify explicit and dynamic candidate path types and their characteristics. Currently, PCEP lacks a way to encode this information, which is limited not just for SR, but also for other path types. Our draft is introducing new E flag in LSP extended for TLV, which is set to 1 if the arrow of the LSP was specified explicitly by an operator and not dynamically computed by a PCP, so by the headend or by the PC. This extension is particularly useful for PC-initiated LSPs where the path is explicitly specified and PCC is connected to multiple PCEs. So in such case, PCE which created the LSP will know that the path was specified explicitly, but other PCs in the network will just see the path used on the PCC from the YARO, but there will be no indication whether it was computed dynamically or specified explicitly. If such LSP is then redelegated to another PC, the new PC may happen to recompute the path, and it will not know that the path was specified explicitly. So we will lose the originally explicitly specified path. This extension can also be useful for PCC initiated LSPs for debugging purposes or for visualization. And currently there is no capability to indicate support for this new flag. So if the E flag is not specified, then PCP can assume that the LSP has dynamically computed path, and we can consider introducing an explicit capability in the future if we will need for it. So thanks for listening. Any feedback, questions, discussion is welcome. The draft is new, so we still have some pending work there, but still we can adjust it based on the comments as well.
No, Andrew Stone, Nokia. I just thought about something yesterday. The binding SID fallback, administratively, would that be an update to the existing binding SID draft, or would that still stand alone on its own feet? Because I guess I'm just wondering if it would make sense that maybe the binding SID fallback would be kind of extracted out into its own document, treat that as an update, and then treat the other two flags as it's new, right? So treat those as new elements together.
Is there something in the RFC that needs to be updated, or is it more of an extension?
I don't know. It's the existing one basically says, you send down nothing and let the node decide, or you send down a value or error. And this basically says, you can send down something new and you might get back something different. So
Feels like an update.
It's new, but it's an update. It's kind of this weird halfway in between.
Just from the guideline point of view, I think if there is some text that you are now deviating against that was published in RFC, this thing, then definitely it's an update. I think we need to just go back and read and do that exercise.
I'm not,
And if authors have already done it and they want to say something, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, is that an update even if we have new capabilities? So basically it will not be applicable to all PCPs?
Yeah, true, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, and my only other comment is the two flags, the transit and the eligibility, the transit eligibility and the other one, like it's really quite like it. Thank you.
Okay, let me add myself to the queue if nobody else is there. Any other comments from anyone? Kwan, why don't you go ahead first?
From city, just a mind.
Yes.
Yeah, just remind that the E flag in LSP extended LSP flag has been used in entropy label. It has been a working group draft, so it would be better to choose a ladder letter or a ladder flag. Yeah.
Okay, we can definitely name it. No, thanks for bringing it up.
Two quick questions regarding this transit eligible flag. I want to hear your opinion as well. Can't we just think that if binding label is assigned, that means you are transit eligible? Is there a need to explicitly signal that flag as well?
So it depends. I can imagine the solutions where the binding SID can be used for other purposes, and where you want to explicitly specify whether those policies can be used for the traffic of, let's say, overlay policies, and these specific policies are dedicated, and it will still have the BSID, but you don't want to use them in the path computation for the overlay policy. So I'm not sure if the binding SID itself is the indication. I would say that there will be vendors who are assigning the binding SID automatically for all the policies, and in such case, basically just the existence of the binding SID is probably not sufficient to basically distinguish them. But yeah, I'll keep others to comment if somebody thinks that that's sufficient. I can consider that, or we can consider that in the draft as well, as an alternative. Yeah.
Ketan, you have a point on this? Go ahead then.
Hi, Ketan Talavlikar, Cisco. So the RFC 9256 does have like a kind of talk about binding set in general in the SR policy construct. And it's one of the ways of steering is based on using the binding set. But the binding set can be allocated or assigned to an SR policy regardless. And some implementations do that all the time.
Yeah.
So I think a separate indication I think would be good.
And I agree with you. I just wanted that in the document as well. That's why I brought it up.
Completely agree. Thank you.
And now changing tact a little bit about the what did explicit.
The next one. Yeah, this one.
Sorry. Yeah, so this idea of explicit path, is it always strict, or can you have a loose path which is explicitly configured?
So at least my understanding is that as soon as we have loose path, then it can be encoded as IRO and not the ERO. So the flag should represent the path which is encoded in ERO.
Yes, so I just wanted to highlight that part as well, that this document should be very clear on that, because that's where my mind was going, that we already have an IRO, but I understand that your use case is a little different. So even when we are talking about this case, it might be make sense to clearly say that this is for strict explicit path.
Yeah, sure. We can update the document to make it explicit. Thanks for the comment.
Cisco. I think the reference to the explicit or dynamic is probably meant for RFC 9256, right? And there explicit does not necessarily mean it has to be strict. It could be a loose explicit as well. So I think you have a valid point. It needs clarification.
Yes, that's why I bought it. But within PCEP, we try to differentiate, but in SR policy, we didn't.
Correct. But I mean, this is in PCEP, so
Yes.
it has to be clarified.
Clear. Agree. Any other comments? Thanks. Thanks, Samuel.
Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon. This is Chuansheng from ZT. The topic is about PCEP extension for the flat banded latency. This is updates from last versions. Thanks for the comments and suggestions from Durf, Andrew, Luberger, and Yellows. This draft has been presented for many times, and there are the updates from version 00, and for this version 5, we aligned with the data plane solutions in the datalet working group. For example, the data plane solution taxonomy draft, and we added operations section to clarify the past computation and the PCEP procedures, and we also add the security consideration section. So these three updates are for this new version. For the PCEP extensions, we extend the metric objector for end-to-end banded latency and for end-to-end banded jitter. And we also extend a new flag to indicate the datalet banded latency function in LSP extended flag TLV. These three extensions have been presented. So the update is mainly on the deterministic path ERO sub-objects. This sub-object has been updated in this version and to align with the data plane solution taxonomy. It's mainly about the deterministic latency information. We have proposed this 5 type of deterministic latency information types. For example, the data9 queuing mechanisms, and we propose to carry the data9 base information to in the PCEP, and we also propose the cycle information and the tense knot information. The above three has been proposed in last version, and the last two subquery is for the new version. The ratio information is mainly for the rate-based queuing mechanisms, and the damper information is mainly for the damper-based queuing informations. For example, the budget, delay information, or the sending rate, and the maximum packet size for the related information discussed in the data plane. For the above discussions, we have resolved the most of the comments, and adding most of the sections and suggestions. So we also aligned with the progress in the DataNet working group. So we are trying to ask for adoption in PCEP working group. Thanks.
Thank you. Janos, could we have DataNet chair?
Hi everyone, Janos Farkas, affiliated with Ericsson. Just want to give a status update on where we are with .NET. We still have not, the working group has relatively recently adopted the taxonomy draft, which is intended to help progressing the down selection of queuing solutions we would go for with as .NET queuing solutions. We still have not made any selection yet. This is one of the topics we will be discussing tomorrow at the .NET session, how to make next steps towards selection. And many of the extensions proposals we have seen are related to particular queuing solutions. So I think still it's not ready to figure out what to add to PCEP from .NET working group perspective. So we don't have working group view yet from that.
Thanks, that's very helpful for us chairs and for the working group as well. But we can still talk about how to encode this information and come up with the bigger framework while we are still deciding the exact fields that we might carry. So there is still some useful work that we can finish while .NET is figuring the other things out. And my comment mainly was from that. So first, thank you for adding the sub-object. But in the document, it currently says that the EROs are only made up of the new .NET sub-objects. But don't you need the path information as well? So it should be existing ERO, which identifies the node, and then the node properties, which are these .NET. So that clarity is currently missing in the document. How this interacts with the existing EROs.
Yeah, I will make some clarification in the draft. Thank you.
Maybe just one more note, if you go to the next previous slide, that I'm not sure if you have aligned this to the .NET RFC on flow information and service information model. The trigger for me to make this comment was the term jitter. And jitter has a lot of meanings, like in time sync was particular meaning and so on. And my recollection is that in the .NET RFC, we use packet delay variation, which is more specific.
Okay.
But it needs to be double checked.
Okay, thank you for your suggestion. So,
if I remember, even on PCEP, we use packet delay variation.
I think so, yeah.
Delay variation, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And since you have defined an ERO, I think you would need RRO as well. So so think of the complete
I think
thing.
so. Yeah. Thank you.
One comment I have, this DLI type, I personally feel it's okay to do in this, but I remember the last time when we did something like this for SR ERO, and we had a little bit of like, oh, maybe this NAI type was not the best encoding. choice, but that was mainly because of using the flag fields to us to tell what are the various different fields that we need to include.
Yeah.
In this case, it's not that. It's each DLI type has its own format, so it's much more cleaner, but still something to think about. And I wanted to just flag that since we are defining a new sub-object type, if there is any lesson learned from past that we can apply. So good to learn. Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
Any other feedback from anyone? Thank you. Last presentation. Is Ting in the room?
Hi, Drew. I'm on the line.
Okay, perfect. I'm passing you the slide control.
Yeah, thank you. And hello, everyone. I'm Ting Han from China Mobile, and it's a new draft we have proposed using PCEP over quick connection. And today I want to introduce the main content of this draft. At first, let's briefly review the challenges that the current PCEP protocol faces. The first one is the prolonged session establishment delay. Establishing a PCEP session involves a three-way handshake between the PCC and the PCE. And if security authentication is required, an additional TLS handshake is necessary, further extending the setup time. And the second one is head of line block. When PCC requests pass computation information for multiple address families, any packet blocking affects the sending of path requests for all address families, leading to inefficiencies and delays. So we proposed to use QUIC as the transport layer protocol for PCEP. At a minimum, we believe it will be able to bring the following benefits, such as QUIC's faster handshake, can reduce the time needed to establish connections, and it will improve security, and it will support connection migration and stream multiplexing. And I believe I don't need to explain each one. And next, I want to introduce how we want to do this. These are the terms we used in this draft. It's a compare between PCEP over TCP and PCEP over QUIC. When the PCEP use TCP connection, the PCC will proactively initiate a TCP request to the PCE server, establishing a TCP connection through a three-way handshake. And the PCC and the PCE will then exchange PCEP open message to negotiate the initialization of the session. And upon the successful negotiation, both parties will send PCEP keep alive messages, thereby completing the session establishment. And if we use QUIC, the PCC will act as the QUIC client, and the PCE will act as the QUIC server. And before they start exchanging routing information, they also must establish a PCEP session, and which will in two phases. Firstly, the PCC will send the client hello to the PCE, and then the PCE will reply the server hello. This process is the same as the quick connection. And then we will establish a PCEP over quick session over this quick connection. We separate streams into control and data channels, assigning different priorities to each, ensuring that control messages receive higher priority processing. So the PCEP over quick speaker establishes a bidirectional stream for the control channel, which is used to establish a PCEP over quick relationship between the PCC and the PCE. And open message is used to establish the PCEP over quick control channel. And after the channel is established, keep alive message is sent to maintain the control channel. After establishing the control channel, each PCEP over quick speaker may create data channels using unidirectional quick streams. These data channels are used to carry PC request and PC reply messages. For IPv4 and IPv6 address families, separate data channels can also be established. The advantages of separating the control channel from the data channel also include that if PCEP over quick supports other address families in the future, using separate data channels can ensure that different address families don't interfere with each other.
Do you want to take questions now?
No, I want to finish the the presentation. Or maybe it's okay to question, no?
No, the purpose of the meeting is to take the questions. So try to finish it quickly so that you have at least 5 minutes at the end to take questions. Go ahead.
Okay, and the main difference is the PCEP over quick FSM can it will support connection maintenance and session correspondence, and maybe I don't need to explain each of this. And for the different messages and PC request and the PC reply messages are sent in the data channel, and the other messages are sent in other control channel or data channel. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Andrew Stone, Nokia, could you go back to the first slide, please?
Yeah.
I have the control, so I'm sure. Motivation?
I thought it was the first slide. Maybe the next
This
slide?
one?
There's a part that talked about address families.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. Or I guess it was slide 3.
Is this good?
No. Try slide 3.
Slide 3.
Sorry.
This is slide 3 for me.
This was 4?
This is slide 4.
There it is, 4.
Okay.
It basically mentions PCEP data channel and it's talking about address families. I think this might have just been copy pasted from BGP because PCEP doesn't have address families. So is there a chance for you to clarify what this meant, or was it just a slide copy paste maybe?
Yeah, actually, this part we indeed borrowed from the BGP over Quick because it has been completed many contents. Yeah.
I just wanted to double check. So in terms of general comments, like BGP, PCEP is a long-standing session, so you don't really gain much with the initial handshake speed up. Unlike BGP, which does have essentially multiple parallel channels that can be used per address family, PCEP doesn't really have that concept. And between two PCEP speakers, traditionally, most of the connections are always between PCEs and PCCs. You don't have that much content on a per channel basis, right? Because you're talking to a specific router. You might have a lot of content going PCE to PCE, such as through StateSync. But even with that, there's no multiple channels because you still have to synchronize all of the LSP data. And all of that LSP data, you want to synchronize start to finish before saying you're essentially sync done. Whereas with BGP, obviously per address family, you can essentially say, yes, this address family is done and this other address family is done and they're independent. So I don't see much benefit of this for PCEP because the benefits of the initial handshake aren't there. The channel separation and parallelism isn't there. So I just don't see the value of this for the sake of PCEP, unless I'm missing something. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Adrian?
Hi, Ting Ting. This is Adrian. I think I agree with Andrew's statement, really, that the benefits of doing this may be a bit oversold, but that's not to say that Quick isn't real, and there may come a time when TCP is tailing off and Quick is taking over, and at that point we would need to run PCEP over Quick. So I'm nothing in principle against it. I may be misunderstanding Quick a little bit, but I feel that you have copied too many ideas from the BGP over Quick document, which may also have misunderstood Quick a little bit. So my understanding is that in Quick, we move to connection IDs and we negotiate the application protocol using Alpen, and we don't specify the UDP port numbers. So you need to just look at your draft a little bit with some quick glasses. A really good base reference for this is the netconf over quick document, which is well progressed and has had a lot of quick clue applied to it.
Thanks, Adrian. Just echoing some of the comments already made, I think the first thing would be for us to have a mechanism to say that why this is needed, and not. And when I was discussing with some, there were some numbers that people had that yes, we have done some kind of test runs, especially when the routers and controller are really far away. There is some benefit seen. It will be good to get those numbers out so that we can discuss them openly, that there is actually a need. And then thanks for Adrian and Andrew and some comments from John as well. Very good suggestions, and I hope authors continue to work on them. Any other comments on this document or any other business? Perfect. We end exactly on time. Bye. Thank you,
Okay,
Jinping.
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
See you in Bangkok.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
You speak Spanish when I say no habla.